But hello, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a nice week with your cat. Me and Jericho are doing well. I made his treats last week and he absolutely loves those. And I'm also working on a whole prey recipe for Jericho, so I wanted to share that with you. It's mostly balanced because whole prey data that we have is limited, so there are certain nutrients that we just don't have data for. So it's going to appear low even though it probably isn't, but technically on paper this is not complete and balanced. I would suggest using this as a template, use it as inspiration, a starting place, because I know when I first started formulating recipes I didn't quite know where to start. I'm using Positive Prey cat meal formulator. Highly recommended for beginners and highly recommended especially if you want to do a whole prey diet, because she does have what data we do have in her formulator. I'll put a link for her formulator in the description below. I also need to put out a disclaimer that I only recommend feeding whole prey if your cat is eating 100% raw. You can't expect your cat to know that whole prey is food if your cat has zero fresh food in his diet. So this recipe, along with my Switch to Raw guide, Positive Prey formulator, all of that will be in one blog post linked in the description and in the pinned comment. Okay, so for the amounts for the whole prey, I am going to keep it simple and just say the approximate number of prey instead of ounces and grams, but I do have ounces and grams for more accuracy in that blog post. So we're going to use around approximately 10 to 11 large mice. Mice are high in iron, magnesium, calcium, potassium, zinc, and protein. Everybody knows that cats eat mice, so of course we're going to include that. We're going to use approximately 1 adult quail. Quail are adults, they're considered adults around 6 to 8 weeks. Quail are very high in taurine, potassium, calcium, and fat. And we're going to use approximately 5 to 6 day-old chicks. Chicks provide variety to the diet, and they're probably the easiest to transition to since most cats like or currently eat chicken, and day-old chicks are baby chicken. Next, we're going to use a few whole foods to really boost other nutrients, some that we know we have from whole prey and some that we just don't have from whole prey. So we're going to use 0.7 ounces or 20 grams of canned oysters, and oysters help to fulfill necessary zinc and selenium requirements. We're going to use the same amount of salmon, so 0.7 ounces or 20 grams of raw salmon. Salmon provides vitamin D and adds healthy fats. We're also going to use 0.42 ounces or 12 grams of raw pork fat. And pork fat brings the fat content up, and especially with the essential fatty acids, because those are the nutrients that we don't have from whole prey, but also because whole prey is very lean, so we do need to add some fat content. So before we add the pork fat, the guaranteed analysis shows about 6% fat, which is pretty low, and adding the pork fat, just a small amount, brings it up to 8%, which is more ideal. Next, we're going to use 1.4 ounces or 40 grams of blue mussels cooked. Blue mussels help to fulfill the manganese requirements. We're going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon or 1.75 grams of Maine Coast Sea Seasonings Dulse, and that's going to provide iodine. We're going to use roughly 1 raw chicken egg yolk. We want 17.5 grams. Egg yolks add healthy fat and trace nutrients. And then we're going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon or 1.75 grams of Now nutritional yeast, and that's going to help bring up the B vitamin content. Whole prey vary in size and weight, so when you're buying it, you'll see that it's a range of, for example, large mice, the range is 18 to 29 grams. So in the roughly 10 to 11 mice, that's just based on the average, so it's more accurate to use the ounces or grams. I just wanted to include, approximately this amount of mice, so it's easier to visualize and kind of plan out how many you need each week. By the way, if you want to be the first to know when my new recipes go live and other raw feeding goodies go live, join my Cozy Cats newsletter that's linked in the description and pinned comment. Apparently, people aren't getting subscription notifications when videos go live. on all different platforms. So if you want to be the very first to know and get a guaranteed notification that I have new content, join my Cozy Cats newsletter. So let's talk about some nutrients that are low, or at least appear low in the formulator, because we just don't have the data for these nutrients for whole prey. So iodine is at 88% of what's recommended. So I am adding a little bit of dulse. Dulse is lower in iodine than kelp. We don't want to overdo it, but I have to tell you, it is considered low on paper. Vitamin B6 is at 41% of what's recommended, and this is based on NRC. Vitamin B5 is at 85% of what's recommended. Biotin is going to appear 0%, and choline is at 24%. Biotin and choline are kind of difficult because most databases like USDA might not report on these, and then we're using whole prey on top of that, so we really don't have a lot of data. But I want to let you know what is low so that when you are formulating and using this as a template, you know which nutrients to look for. So for the guaranteed analysis of this recipe, protein as fed, meaning with the moisture, is 18.56%. Dry matter is just about 60%. Fat is a little over 8% as fed. For the dry matter, it's about 28%. Ash is just under 3% dry matter, or as fed, and then on dry matter, it's about 9%. The moisture content is just about 69%. Carbs are 1.31% as fed, dry matter 4.3%. And the calcium to phosphorus ratio is 1.8 to 1. And that's high because whole prey is just higher in calcium compared to the phosphorus amount. I want to note that ash equals minerals. That's absolutely necessary. Cats do eat ash in the wild. The name ash just comes from if you were to burn all of the nutrients, if you were to burn the food, the nutrients that would be left would be ash and the minerals. That's how they came up with that. Blue mussels are the highest in carbs, followed by oysters. This amount still matches the feral cat diet, and obviously these ingredients are not full of grains and wheat and all of that, and corn and stuff. These are feline appropriate ingredients that we're using. So how to make this recipe: you're going to feed the mice and the day-old chicks. You can feed whole. When you're first starting out, I would recommend cutting them and exposing some of the organs, maybe even smear some of your cat's raw food on top so that it'll get your cat to eat it. Because when you feed it whole, like for the first time, your cat might play with it. That's what Jericho did with a large mouse. He just threw it around and played with it. So, make a plan to transition to it slowly. I am working on a whole prey guide, like whole prey feeding guide. So again, join my email newsletter so that you're the first to know. For the quail, adult quail are pretty large. So they're between 7 and 9 ounces, which is a lot. That's way more than your cat probably eats in a day. At least Jericho eats just under 4 ounces. So that's way more food than a cat needs in one day. So when I was feeding adult quail, I haven't recently just because I haven't been able to source it, but I am going to start again. I was cutting it up. Usually I would cut the head off and then I would cut the quail in half and then half again so that it was, the chest and the wing half, the chest and the wing half, and then the leg halves as well. For all of the oysters, salmon, and the supplements, I would suggest just blending it all together, or you just mash it with a fork. That's what I do for Jericho, and then I put them into treat molds, pop them in the freezer, and then I just give, you would divide it out into 7 equal portions once it's all mixed together, because it would be 1 per day. So how much to feed your cat? I just mentioned this is going to be 1 week's worth of food for a 10.7 pound cat. That's how much Jericho weighs. And it's going to vary based on the individual cat. So that's why I recommend using this as a starter template and then adjusting it based on your cat's individual needs. So this recipe as is delivers 54.8 kcal per ounce, and you would be feeding for ounces 3.85 per day, for grams 109.15, and that would deliver 211, just over 211 kcal per day. And this would be 7 days worth using those numbers. But again, you will have to adjust based on your cat's individual needs. Don't forget to join my Cozy Cats newsletter to be the first to know when all of my recipes and raw feeding and whole prey guides go live. Thanks for watching.